Good. So welcome back. Session 2 then of our mindfulness course. It's been a bit of a break for us over the summer between sessions 1 and 2, but we will try our best to remember what went before. So we'll just have a little tiny recap then on what we were looking at in session 1, just to get the juices flowing, as it were. So I'll just share one of the handouts that we were looking at. So in session 1, we were looking at what is mindfulness, and we were just looking at some definitions of mindfulness. So just we'll just recap on those just to sort of get us back into the flow of things. So lots of definitions of mindfulness around, but one of them, a popular one, is about being fully present and being aware of where we are, what we're doing, and being not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. And last time we were here, we were talking about an experience from the morning of Anne and her builders outside, who were making a hell of a racket, but Anne managing to stay mindful and to not be overly reactive to the noise or overwhelmed by the noise and the commotion that was going on outside by staying mindful. So I've got a similar situation this morning. Coincidentally, I've got people out there laying my neighbour's new drive. So I've got a lot of stuff going on. So yeah, I'm practicing that as well. So I'm fully present, being aware of where we are, what we're doing, not overly reactive of things that are going on that perhaps I wouldn't wish to go on outside. And we said that it's a quality that we've already got. We all possess the quality of mindfulness, but in our busy and frenetic lives, we tend to lose touch with being mindful, being in the present, being in the moment, being aware of sensations, not planning for the future, not thinking about the past, not on the to-do list, just about being able to be in the moment. And we talked about it's a good thing. Why is that a good thing? Why should we be fully present? What's wrong with always being on autopilot, on the to-do list, thinking back, thinking forward? And we talked about, well, the trouble is with that is that it can bring about a stress response by worrying about the future or having regrets about the past, going over things over and over again. And we can't do anything about the past, it's gone. The future's not here yet, and inventing stories about it may not be helpful. And it can just mean that we're never actually living right now, which is the only moment that we've definitely got in this life. It's the only thing we can be assured of. So never being fully engaged with that moment is kind of almost wasting life while we're rushing around and not being in the moment. I think that's kind of a bit of a summary. Has anybody got anything else to add to that?
No, I think that fairly covers everything. But I have to say, the action of being mindful, when I was listening to the breathing session, I was thinking, you are actually quite active. You are quite active. You were thinking about what you were doing. And there's something rather empowering about that. Yes, we can worry about future, past, and that's the way we're wired, if you like. But to actually sit and be mindful, people think you are resting. Yes, you are resting, but your mind is actually working on what you are looking at in your mind at that moment. And I doing that session, I felt I was traveling around my body. There was a film many years ago, I think it was called The Fantastic Journey or Voyage or something like that, where everybody was catapulted into a body, and I was there in my lungs, feeling them fill with air. And it is a very active thing, and I think that can only be positive for us. We're sitting very still, we've got our eyes closed, but our mind is very focused on what is important, that living for that moment, which is, it's got to be good. It has got to be good.
Fabulous.
Yes, and I think it's the actual practice that's the key, because you're not aiming to get anywhere. It's just the actual practice and staying with it.
Yeah.
When all these thoughts come, and sort of the negative thoughts of the past, if you carry on thinking about them and going over them, you just reinforce them, and you're not letting them go. And it is the practice that works, that opens your mind, you know, to new possibilities. So I think that's what's really important. You don't actually get anywhere. It's just the practice.
Yeah, lovely. So just to clarify, Anna's just kindly introduced the meditation that we did just before we started recording. So the meditation is from the Little Mindfulness workbook. I don't know if you can see that nice and clearly. As I said in the introduction, we use we've made this course from a lot of different sources. This is one of them, and they've got some lovely meditations which they make available freely to everybody. They're there on SoundCloud. So if you want to do the same meditation that we've just done, then if you go to SoundCloud, then you'll find the Mindfulness of Breathing by the Little Mindfulness workbook, from the Little Mindfulness workbook. So if you key in those phrases, then you should come to the meditation that we're just talking about, where we were focusing on breathing and on bodily sensations. So if you want to go off now and have a listen to that, then please do, or listen to it another time, and then kind of make sense of what we're saying about it. That would be great. So other things then that link into that, and as a recap then, going on to wise words from Professor Mark Williams, who wrote the book Mindfulness, A Practical Guide to Finding Peace in a Frantic World, or co-authored the book, I should say. So he says that it's easy to stop noticing the world around us, to lose touch with the way our bodies are feeling, end up living in our heads. So being caught up with our thoughts, our to-do list, being on autopilot. And we often don't stop to notice how the thoughts that we're having are driving our emotions and our behaviour. So when we're thinking about stressful things, of course, our body then reacts to those stressful things by producing stress hormones, because the mind can't distinguish between what's actually happening and what you're thinking about. So if you're thinking about something stressful, it's kind of as bad as being in a stressful situation, because the body reacts accordingly and gives out all of those hormones, because it thinks that you need to fight or flight or freeze in response to whatever threat it is that it perceives. So reconnecting with our bodies and the sensations, waking up to what's going on right now, can take us out of the mind and playing those stressful situations, creating stressful emotions, creating the stress response in the body, and can get us into the bodies, out of the mind, and producing those happy hormones, those relaxation hormones instead. So in the meditation that we were just doing, mindfulness of breathing, then we were finding the anchor that we can put our mind onto, instead of onto the to-do list, our mind can then start to focus on something that's happening right now, and that will help us to come back into the relaxation response. As we focus on the breathing, as we focus on the body, and we're not worrying about what's happening in the future or the past, then the body goes into the relaxation response, and produces all the relaxation hormones instead. So it's all good stuff. And what Anne was saying was an interesting point, Anne, that you were saying, but when you're focusing on the breathing and on the body, it's not just a passive thing. And perhaps the good thing about that is that the mind does wander. It wanders and it wanders and it wanders and it wanders. I did an interesting experience on a course that I've been doing with the Mindfulness Association this week. Here's another of their another material then that I'm drawing on. So their course is mindfulness-based living course. So that I've started to follow that as well. And we were talking the other night about how the mind wanders and wanders and wanders, and it's very, very difficult to just think about nothing. That actually we need an anchor. If we're going to stop thinking about our to-do list, we need to give the mind something else to anchor on. And we did a little experiment where we tried to meditate for 10 minutes by just doing nothing and thinking about nothing. And every so often she rang the gong and said, "Where's your mind now?" And of course, every time she rang the gong, our minds were on our to-do list or on something that happened in the past or something. And I thought that was a really good activity to do because, yeah, actually without an anchor, then the mind just wanders off and goes back into fretting or worrying or planning. But with an anchor, like bringing the attention to the body and to the breath, then the mind is given something to do, but it's something positive and it's something that will have a good effect on our psyche and on our bodies. Yep, so just moving on, so another part of mindfulness, being aware of our thoughts and feelings as they happen moment to moment. So we've talked about connecting in with the breath, the present moment, bodily sensations and stuff. But also mindfulness helps us to become aware of our thoughts and our feelings as they happen moment by moment, and therefore allowing ourselves to see the present moment more clearly. And then when we do that, we can change the way we react to things, maybe by responding to things instead. So I don't know if anybody wants to say anything about reacting versus responding and having choices about how you react to what's going on in your daily life.
I have found that very helpful, not to react so much when things happen. I've found the more I've been practicing mindfulness, when stuff does happen, which isn't particularly pleasant, I can usually manage to step back, and not get myself all uptight and anxious, and just to consider it properly.
Yeah.
To respond when I'm ready to, not when my buttons have been pressed, but I'll respond when I'm ready to, and when it's the right time for me.
Yeah.
I've found that's helpful. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So do you think before you came to mindfulness, you had that same awareness of your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and your reactions to things? Do you think mindfulness has changed that?
I think it has changed it. I was aware of when things were happening, but I perhaps didn't cope with it so well. I wasn't able to sort of be as calm about things, and I did react more. But I find since I have been doing mindfulness, it's helped me to slow down and as you say, take that step back.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has helped a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It has.
And I think the whole process just makes you rethink. I've always been someone who didn't respond very quickly to situations, and I do get worked up, but it takes an awful lot to make me angry. And both of my children could count on the fingers of half a hand how many times they've witnessed me do that. But they have known then that, you know, the situation was out of control. Mom's really angry now. So, you know, something must be terrible because she doesn't do this. And I can actually, like Leslie was saying, I can think of trigger points now that I would have stacked up in the past. Oh, right, let that happen once again. And, oh, it's happened again, but I'll give them another go. And that was the way I used to work it. And then in the end, I was absolutely livid. But now I find that although this was a very rare occurrence for me, I find that now these little trigger points, I can let them go. I just think, no, yeah, I'm not pleased about this. I'm not pleased about this. But think about all the things that I am pleased about. Let's talk and focus on that. Or, you know, because I do talk to myself, let's be honest. So, you know, I mean, it's some of the best conversation we have in the day, isn't it? So I will sit there and it may be something that I'm watching on the television. It may be the news I'm listening to on the radio. And, you know, you voice what you think about it, and then you sort of, yes, but let's think about what's happened today. Let me think about all the positive things. And you can let it go. You don't need to build that, because that wasn't good. That wasn't really good, that this situation would build up. But I know how I was when I was working, and I would let a lot of things go. But then eventually there was a big explosion. And I think mindfulness helps for that not to get there, because I'm sitting, I'm reviewing, I'm deciding on what I need perhaps to store for a little bit later, but it's not that important. What's important is now. And I agree with Leslie, it is very, very helpful.
Great. Yeah. Okay. So trigger points, things that get on your wick, things that push your buttons. That's what you're talking about, isn't it? Yeah. So the way somebody spoke to you, or somebody barged in front of you in a queue, or somebody cut you up when you were driving, or in your work, a colleague kept on making critical comments, or, you know, all those kind of triggery things. So mindfulness helps us to, those things still happen, of course, you know, life's full of trigger points like that, isn't it? And we can't stop that. But what we're saying then is that we can actually just have an awareness that those are trigger points. And we can therefore think, I do actually have a choice about how to react or how to respond to those, rather than just going into autopilot and just responding in a habitual way which may not serve us in life. Yeah, all good stuff. So seeing the present moment more clearly. Yeah, absolutely. And then we can positively change the way we see ourselves and our lives. Yeah, very empowering. So, and then going on to, so what does mindfulness involve doing? So we've said that we all have some mindfulness within us, it's innate, but like it can be likened to a muscle, where we can strengthen that muscle by using proven techniques. So, you know, there's lots of science behind a lot of mindfulness studies that show how it helps people with their mental health and how it helps with their, you know, levels of positivity in life and coping strategies and so on and so forth. And the techniques include doing meditation. So, you know, that can be a kind of seated or lying meditation where we, you know, sit and focus on what's being said. by somebody else, or we can do those by just meditating ourselves. Or it's possible to do meditation in life. You know, when we're walking, it's possible to do walking meditations and moving meditations. And if you're quite a fidgety person, then that can be quite nice. When you're walking along and counting your breaths, or when you're walking along and noticing things instead of, you know, noticing what's happening right now, instead of thinking about, you're walking along but you're not seeing what's going on around you, you're thinking about a conversation you've had that's upset you, or what you're worrying about tomorrow, or so on and so forth. And we can take short pauses in life. That can be a powerful thing, you know, even 5 minutes a day. Taking a pause out and thinking, right, okay, now I'm going to stop what I'm doing, and I'm going to just sit and think about what's going on right now in my body, in my breath, taking a break. Yeah, or merging meditation into other activities, like as we're eating, actually just taking some time out, not looking at phones or screens or talking to somebody else, but just sitting, thinking about what we're eating and how that feels, how it tastes, how the body's reacting to that. Or the same thing if you're having a shower, or if you're having to wait in line, that's a good time to do a bit of meditating, just thinking, okay, how does it feel in my body right now? How does my breath feel? So that you don't have to build up all that impatience about waiting in line. If you're anything like me, or driving, or if you're going for a walk, having a swim. So you can build it into your day-to-day kind of activities to strengthen your meditation muscles. And obviously taking part in classes that encourage and strengthen mindfulness practices by just doing those practices. So, you know, doing living mindfully type of classes, or classes like yoga or qigong or tai chi tend to involve being mindful of the breath and mindful of the body. So that strengthens those mindfulness muscles as well. And of course, ongoing practice and learning more about mindfulness, again, it just builds up your knowledge and your strength of practice if you choose to do more studies. So, yeah. So we talked about in the first course about techniques that we'd experienced and which appealed. So I don't know if you just want to brush on that again. Lovely participants.
Well, I was just thinking, as you were, see, my mind was wandering already. As you were saying that, Claire, I was thinking something as simple as sharing a mindfulness session is quite reassuring. Even if you're doing it on Zoom, or you're watching it and you're joining in with something like this that is pre-recorded, just to know that other people are doing the same. Yes, you can do it on your own. That's the whole idea. You're practicing these skills and improving the effect of it on your own. But having someone else there is just it. And doing yoga and doing anything with a group of people, there's something very empowering to think there are a group of you all sharing in this particular activity, or doing it in completely different ways, because we are all so different, but we're all doing something together. And that togetherness is something that we, as human beings, we really take a lot of comfort from.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my Qigong class is very much focused on mindfulness and the way you move and how you move, you know, and being sort of just totally absorbed in what you're actually doing. And sometimes some of the things are quite complicated, so you have to be focused on what you're doing. There's no space for anything else. And to do that in a group, the energy is just really, it's a positive energy. It is when you work together like that. It's lovely. It's
Yeah. I think what I find really reassuring about being with a group or witnessing a group is that as human beings, we're all on a daily basis, we're all dealing with the same sort of issues and concerns and problems, you know, being human. And I think that in itself is reassuring, because you can think, well, it's just me, you know, my mind's all over the place, but I'm sure everybody else isn't, you know, they look very calm and serene and focused. I think it's nice just to know, you know, we're all in the same boat, aren't we? And
that's how our mind works.
This is how our mind works, and
and
developing. Sorry.
All of us, for everybody, that's how the mind works. It's geared to go off. It is. Yes. The key is bringing it back to where you want it to be.
Yeah,
it is.
But being compassionate with ourselves about being human, you know, I love that about mindfulness. In the, you know, let's not beat ourselves up and be critical, because our society can encourage us to be very critical, quite competitive, quite thrusting, rather than just thinking, actually, I'm a human being and I'm probably doing my best, and this is what my best looks like, and that's okay. And I find that very reassuring. So let's just move on then to some new concepts to have a little chew over. So moving on to a bit more about mindfulness then, and the benefits of it. Just a little look at those. So we've been talking about benefits of mindfulness for ourselves, and you know what we find good about it. But there are also physiological changes. Again, there's, you know, lots of science behind that. One of the key things is that mindfulness can change the wiring in the brain. Which is fabulous. Neuroplasticity means, you know, the mind actually isn't set. It is a little bit malleable. And when we do new things, and when we start new practices, and when we practice new things, the mind can put down new pathways. The brain can put down new pathways, which to me is brilliant. That's really exciting, isn't it? Because you can get to a certain age and think, well, I'm you know, my mind's so stuffed full already. I can't possibly develop or learn anything new or develop new habits. But yes, and the science backs it up. You know, it can produce measurable changes and changes in the brain in regions that are associated with memory and sense of self and empathy and stress. So all of those areas, kind of getting gentle rewiring through mindfulness, I find that quite exciting.
I must admit that was a surprise to me. I wasn't when we learned about that. I was very reassured. I must admit, I thought this is wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, as you've just said, Claire, you tend to think, oh well, that's it. I'm getting to a certain age now. I've got to expect this, and I've got to expect that. But I don't see why we should expect it. And here is a perfect tool to support us in controlling that process. And we can do things that are going to be beneficial in all sorts of ways. But just being able to be mindful about just for a short while every day has got to be supporting us in this process of expanding what our mind can do, what the pathways that our brain follows, and new ones. So it's all very positive as far as I'm concerned. And that was a big surprise to me.
Yeah.
There are lots of studies, aren't there, now about sort of rewiring the brain and the mind fueling the brain. And it's very encouraging.
Yeah.
But when you're getting on a bit in years, it's very encouraging.
It is, yes, because we hear statements about how our brain cells are just dying off and things, and we're losing capacity. But the scientific studies have shown that the brain can increase its grey matter density in areas that are significant for learning and memory, which is great as well, isn't it? And in self-awareness, compassion, introspection. So, in that way, it can be said to be a good preventative tool against memory loss and dementia, which, has got to be fabulous news. So yes, as well as putting down new pathways in the brain, it can actually build up the brain like a muscle again, which, how lovely is that? And it can improve well-being, of course. So, studies have shown that developing mindfulness can help to make you more satisfied with life. And it can make it easier to savour the pleasures in life and to be fully engaged in your activities and what's going on around you, and to give you a bigger capacity to deal with adverse events that come along in life. Have you found that in your own lives, do you think?
Well, I'll just share something which is quite personal. Well, I've had a couple of visits to the dentist recently, and like many people, it's always been a problem for me. But I have managed to be very mindful of actually what's going on when I've been in the dentist chair, rather than my imagination going, oh, this might hurt in a minute, or that might go. And I've really been able to stay in what's going on. And even the dentist said, oh, yes, carry on with your breathing. That's good. That's fine. And it's not been a bad experience. I've been quite calm, and I've come out really feeling quite calm. I mean, I know that's quite personal, but for me, it has worked. Very helpful.
Oh, yeah. I like that. Yeah.
I shall definitely try that next time I go. I shall.
Yes.
I tend to sit in the dentist chair, gripping the arms.
Yes.
As I'm about to take off.
Yes.
So
I mean, an understandable response, and I think that's kind of the automatic response, isn't it? To be, stiff and rigid and gripping, and to be fearful.
Yes.
But I do the same thing when I'm at the dentist these days, and I purposely I close my eyes and I follow my breathing. My dentist thinks I'm a bit strange, but it does allow me to just focus. I'm not so much focusing on what they're doing, but I'm focusing on the breath. But it has that same effect of, well, I'm not thinking about the injections and the drills and all that kind of stuff. I'm just being here with the breath and keeping myself nice and calm.
And that's a good way, because when they give you an injection, they say relax, don't they? I mean, that's a standard word that comes out of the dentist's mouth. Now just relax. Well, they would be really shocked if you did, but I'm going to take a leaf out of your book, Leslie, and the next time he tells me to relax, he may be sorry, but I shall be relaxed.
But he did notice, the dentist did notice. He said, oh, yes, carry on with your breathing. Yes, that's fine. He obviously realised and could see what I was doing. And he got it.
That's brilliant, isn't it? That's brilliant. And in our original course, I remember one lady saying that when she went for MRI scans and went in into that big tunnel where it sounds like metal spoons clanging on a bucket. She was mindful in that as well, because that can be quite an alarming experience. So, similar sort of thing. Yeah. So, and then moving on then, so focusing on the here and now, as we do in mindfulness, means that we're less likely to get caught up in our worries about the future or regrets over the past, less preoccupied with concerns about success and self-esteem, better able to form deep connections with others. So there's quite a lot in that paragraph, isn't there? So we've talked about being less likely to get caught up in worries about future or regrets over the past. That's fairly straightforward. But how do you think it makes us less preoccupied with concerns about success and self-esteem?
I do wonder whether some of that just goes with age. I think when you're younger, perhaps in your 30s and 40s, you are very focused on being successful and feeling good about yourself. And as you become older, you tend to be very much more comfortable with the way, if you're going to forget about the past and things that may have worried you in the past, if you're going to be able to successfully do that, and the sort of life you've been through, I think it probably is an age thing, and it's probably fair to say that younger people would need to help their concern about success with mindfulness, because I think it is an age thing. I want to be successful still. I want to be successful in the things I do, but I'm comfortable in what I can achieve, even though I can see other people being more successful. I can cope with that, whereas I may not have been able to cope with it, say, 30 years ago, and I do feel that the mindfulness has made me cope better with it now. But I also think that could be age related as well, because you tend not to be in a situation where you have to achieve, and you have to feel really as though you are important in what you do. And I think you get past that stage as you get older, because you're more comfortable about things. But the mindfulness makes you focus on what you are, what's going on now, what's going on around you, and the other things become less important anyway.
I think mindfulness.
Sorry.
I think mindfulness will help you to redefine what success is. It isn't always about achievements and reaching a goal. It can be sort of success in having a positive day, a calm day, that's a successful day. It isn't always about achievements, and I think mindfulness does help you to redefine what success is.
I think
looking at it in a completely different way to I understand.
I think that there's lots in what you've both said there. I think mindfulness, by helping you to take a step back and to look at things a little bit more impartially, can help you to examine things that you have thought before about, what is success, and what can make my self-esteem, and is it related to success and striving, achieving, or gathering possessions? And I think it can help you to step away from that and actually think, it's not important really, is it? But I've also had people say the same as Anne, as you get older, maybe you go through that process a little bit anyway, where you start to think, well, I don't have to succeed at work anymore, or I don't have to get a bigger house or bigger this or bigger that, because it's not really relevant to my life anymore. Whereas I think younger people can be under a lot more pressure to be building up, to be acquiring, to be succeeding in the way that society says that's measured. So it makes me think, well, mindfulness can be really good then for young people who are in the thick of all of that, and particularly young people with social media and all that pressure, and being successful is all about looking good and having this and that and the other and being better and beating other people. And mindfulness can just be a way to step back and say, hang on a second, actually, is that important? Or is that about people trying to make money out of us and, all the rest of it? They can start to think a little bit more critically about messages that they're being told in life about what is success and so on. Wow, deep stuff on a Friday morning. And better able to form deep connections with others. So how do you think mindfulness helps with that?
Well, I have to say I have, like Leslie, a personal situation which has happened over the last few months. I have an elderly cousin. She was my father's cousin, and she had a fall about 3 months ago, and she's been through the process of hospitals, care home, and she was in a rehabilitation home, and things were not going well at all because she had this fall. She damaged her shoulders and suddenly she couldn't walk. And I remember going to see her in the care home that she was in about 3 weeks ago, because it was Rugby, so it was a little bit of a distance and not on a good motorway. Lots of mindfulness on queues in motorways, I have to add. And I went to see her and she was quite distraught because she said they wouldn't let her go home. They won't let me go home if I can't walk. And I said, well, why can't you walk? I said, what's the matter? You haven't done anything to your legs. Yes, but they won't work, she said. And I told her about mindfulness. I told her what I do, what we all do together, about our yoga. And she was the lady who said, when they asked her at the hospital, did she do any yoga or anything like that? She says, oh yes, 40 years ago, which of course wasn't really helping her at that moment in time. But I said to her, I said, there's nothing the matter with your legs. I said, it's your confidence. I said, you've got to think of all the things you can do. And I said, you must try. I said, because if they see you trying, they will be more positive about you going home with care and with help. I said, but they will be happier to let you go home. So think about what you can do. I said, and push yourself a little bit every day and sit down. I said, you've got plenty of time to sit and think, because unfortunately of all the people in the home, there was only Avril who could we could have a reasonable conversation with, sadly. Anyway, I spoke to her. They allowed me to speak to her on the telephone a couple of times. And she said to me, I'm doing your thinking, which was the mindfulness. She says, I'm doing your thinking, she says, and I'm getting better. And I have to say, I went to see her on Tuesday. She's still in the home for the moment, but she walked the full length of the long lounge with a walker. And I had the shock of my life. I wasn't expecting that at all. And she said, they've been really helpful. They've helped me with this. She said, but I did a lot of that thinking, Anne. And I said, I'm very glad. I said, you were being mindful. I said, that was what you were being. And I thought that was lovely. But I just feel I've got a connection with Avril now. I've had it for quite a long time. But doing this, it was just a little thing, I felt, just saying, think about what you can do. Go in there and tell your legs they can do it. They'll get there because they used to do it before. And I just feel that was a real success for her. She was able to do this thinking, and as long as she thought the right things, they obviously worked. I'm sure the physiotherapist also helped an awful lot.
Well, yes, that's lovely. So I'm aware that we're running right up into the yoga class that we're going into. So we will leave it there for today. Lots and lots to say for the future sessions. So I will look forward to the next session then. Thank you so much for your thoughts and your suggestions, and I look forward to next time then. So
thank you.
bye for now.
Bye then. Bye.
Bye-bye.